always welcome Robert back to Late Night in the Midlands. Welcome aboard.
Well, thank you, Michael. It's great to be back.
Well, it's great to have you.
No longer. Well, I see you have some great lists. There were some great guests on there. You got a good friend of mine was on recently, Gordon Giannotto from up there in Maine. Yeah, I've known him for almost 2 years now. Brilliant guy. Really,
he is.
A good take on what's going on.
Yeah, he's a great guest. I enjoy talking with him because he doesn't try to glorify everything. He just tells you what he knows.
Yeah, and he knows quite a bit. He knows quite a bit and has a unique take on things, and I appreciate his candor and his approach. Yeah, we've been friends for a while now. And another thing, you mentioned that my ebook is available on Lulu. Well, no longer. I took it off, and now I'm on what's the Amazon for Kindle. It's now available on Kindle.
Okay, so I'll have to change that because I had it in the file. Yeah, so a lot's happened since the last time we talked. Around the country, around the world. You had sent me a email with some Agenda 21 video and such, and it's kind of ironic because we had just done a show about Agenda 21, and then I got that email, and I thought, wow, okay, well, got to have you on, and what do you know about it? This is some scary stuff.
It's very scary stuff. I mean, the biggest problem with it that I see is that people just don't believe it and they don't think it's real. Most people are not even aware of it. So, just bringing it out in the open is the best thing you can do. That video that you just talked about on my site, footprintsingyourmind.com, about a third of the way down the page, I've put together a video. It's a kind of it includes like several videos. They're all off of YouTube, and I put them together and added some different music and put in a few different comments and everything. But what I did is I took the main points out of a bunch of videos and compiled them together in a compilation that really talks about what it really is, how long it's been around, what the plans are, who's involved with it, where it came from, and what can be done about it. And so, it's kind of like a synopsis of all the different things you could find all in one place. So anybody that wants to take a look at that or download it, it's free and it's available on my site, footprintsingyourmind.com. We've actually done a couple of shows on ourselves on my Blog Talk Radio show, IF Radio. That stands for Intradimensional Facets Radio. It's on Blog Talk under F-Radio. So we do kind of the same format as yours. We consider ourselves kind of a friendly and safe environment, very similar to Coast to Coast. But,
and that's how we try to keep things here friendly and safe. And, of course, the Blog Talk chat room sometimes will get out of hand. But I tell people if they want to be around people who, are as smart as they are and have some great conversation, then come to the website because we've got two chat rooms. We've got the Blog Talk chat open, and we've got the chat on the website as well. And I watch the one on the website more, so...
Well, that's a great idea. I just have the one. I have the one on the Blog Talk, and that's usually the only one we bother with. But we've been pretty fortunate. I've only had to mute out a couple of people, and mostly because they were just inebriated. They weren't really. It wasn't, very derogatory, but I just didn't want to deal with that. So.
Right.
I haven't had to. I just didn't make any derogatory statements about them either. Just let it go.
I haven't had to throw too many out. I haven't had to do that. But when it comes in strides. Like a group of them will all come at once and try to distract you.
Haven't had that problem yet. You never can tell what's going to happen. We've had some wonderful guys, really great guys, and they usually very professional, and it works out really well. Gordon has been on our show probably 4 or 5 times. So that's the caliber
I've had him
of
on.
people we have. I
think I've had him on about 3 or 4 times now. He's been on my show.
Yeah, and it's a great guest, and he's knows a lot of people. Has been around a long time, and brings a lot of heavyweight people with him. You know, most of the people we get are PhDs, and they're all published authors and whatnot, and so it's just fun. And I learn a lot. Now, you were talking about I used to serve on the board of directors for Searching for Bigfoot. Actually, I was one of the founding members, and when I got involved with that, you had me on before, and we talked about the Bigfoot thing. And when I first started, I didn't see how this could at all be possible. And after getting out in the field and seeing what was out there, it became obvious that clearly there is something to that. And what that was like a light switch going off in my head, because it made me realize that if I thought that was all drama and delusion and couldn't possibly be real, and then I found out I was probably all wet about that, there's probably a lot of things that I had made up my mind about that I didn't know anything about, and that's a silly way to spend my life. And so I started looking at all the things that I always thought were just whack. And now I every time I get a new guest on that has a view outside of my own, I learn something, and I learn from it. I take it away, and I don't necessarily agree with everybody I talk to, but by golly, I want to hear it, and I want to learn about it, and it's really opened up my life and my mind, and I'm much better off for it. And it's glad to see that there are shows out there that are open to those kind of ideas and willing to talk to people that think outside the box and have their own ideas about what's going around, because some of them are going to be right. Some of them might not be, but at least they have a format where they can share their ideas and expand the thoughts and the thinking process of all the people they can reach. And
that's right.
Thank you.
That's right.
That.
Oh, well, thank you too. There's not enough of us out there, unfortunately. And, same thing here. I have guests on who I don't always agree with, but I want to hear their thoughts and their theories. Whether, I think they're wrong or not, who knows, I could be wrong. So I like to have them on and explore different things. And, so that's how I've been running it the last 5 years. I just, I can't stick to one thing. I can't talk about UFOs every night. Can't talk about the New World Order every night. Some nights, it weighs on you. So I kind of shift around.
Yeah, we have every possible. I had an alchemist on, and I always thought alchemy was just really one of those ancient things that they didn't know any better, and they were striking out all these things. And now I find out after talking to the alchemist that there's really quite a bit to that, and it's very probable that, as a matter of fact, now they've actually been able to turn some base materials into gold. So, but I learned an enormous amount. That really opened my eyes, so I appreciated that. But as far as Agenda 21 goes, what makes Agenda 21 dangerous is people just don't think it could be. It's just one of those conspiracy theories, and yet it's published. It's actually UN Agenda 21, and what it does is it says that the whole world needs to be made to be sustainable, and we have too much population for that to happen. So they have to get rid of a large part of the population and move them into high-rise, high-concentration areas, and let the rest of the country go back to just basically a big park. And that park will be for the selected few economic elitists who control the government now. We like to think of ourselves as a free government for the people, of the people, and by the people, and all that good stuff, but it's not. It's for the dollar, by the dollar, and controlled by the people who control the dollars. And people are starting to realize that. They're starting to see it. this economic failure we're seeing is a cyclical thing that's done to for people to be able to confiscate the real wealth of the country, which is real property and things like that. So once you see it, it becomes kind of obvious, and what I've tried to do is put together a video that kind of shows it. It ties in with so many things, including biblical statements about the end times and what's happening, and the mark of the beast, all that good stuff is all covered by this plan, this UN plan to, in the guise of ecology, dominate the world. I mean, the people that control all the money, literally all the money, which they make out of thin air. What else do they have to go for except power? I mean, they've got all the money. They can do whatever they want, and I guess the next thing they're looking for is power. And they are working hard to dumb down our children, to alter the educational format so that the children are not highly educated, but will learn how to do service jobs and how to care for the rich elite, and that's it. Which is a very, very scary situation, and we're living through it. We're seeing it all around us, but it's presented so subtly and under the guise of ecology that everybody's in favor of, that they can just etch away at our rights and our freedoms in a way that by generation after generation, people just don't see it eroding. And it's disappearing in front of their eyes. So
yeah, absolutely.
I don't know what
I was just going to say I've had enough people say, "Oh, that's just a conspiracy theory," and I mean, like you said, it's in writing. I mean, it's documented. I mean, they absolutely want to do this, and people just I don't know how they overlook this. I guess they don't want to believe that it can actually happen. But the thing is, it is happening. It's happening right now as we speak.
Absolutely. I'm surprised at how few people understand that the Federal Reserve is in no way connected with our government other than they own it.
That's
people
right.
think the Federal Reserve is a part of the federal government, and they print our money, which is against our Constitution. In 1913, during a major holiday break, they ramrodded that through Congress and the Senate, and they gave away Congress's right to print money, and they gave it to a board of world bankers. And we've been in decline ever since, under their control ever since. People don't realize that most of the national debt goes to these banks. They think, oh, we must all go to China, a place like that. Well, no, it goes to pay off the loans that are handled by the World Bank. It goes for the fees that they charge, the interest they charge us to print our own money, things like that. And people just haven't got a clue. They haven't got a clue about that. And so what makes us insidious is the fact that it's out there in plain view. It's hidden in plain view. And the preying off of the not the ignorance, but ignorance by the term that people are just not aware of it, the ignorance of the general populace, and who learns most of everything they learn, unfortunately not from great shows like yours, Michael, but from what they see in the mainstream media. We've become addicted to TV. We went from watching TV for free and having to put up with a few commercials to now having to pay to have it brought into our home, and they did away with free TV. And a lot of people signed up for that because they didn't have to worry about the commercials. Now we see more commercials, more shows that are just about selling products, and all put together by the same people who are owned by the big banks, by the world banks. There's a handful of people that control the mass media, very few shows that are not influenced by their advertisers, Their advertisers are all controlled by the banks that give them the funds to create the companies they use to require the advertising. You know, it's just a big cycle. And that's controlled by a handful of people. There are less than 6% of the world's population that controls more than 70% of the world's resources. How did that happen?
That's right.
How many people are even aware of that? You know, it's
exactly. And, you know, and that's what I've been trying to tell people. You know, they've been getting their news from the mainstream media for a long time, and they've been getting lied to. You know, they're not telling us the truth. They're telling us what they're told to tell us. And now even the alternative media has been invaded by these COINTEL-like people. And, you know, as a result, you know, it's mix it up and confuse people, and that's a lot of that's going on, and so people don't know what to believe. And you know, it's sad because whenever something like this, like UN Agenda 21, anybody can go and see the documentation on this that it's real, but how many people actually take the time to do it? Most will just say, well, so and so said that it's not true, so it's not. I mean, if it was true, you'd see it on Fox News or CNN.
And actually, it's been on those shows, you know, and still it's not. People don't believe it, you know. So there's people, you know, there's people out there who speak their mind, you know, but you know, they're on the fringes of, you know, they put enough of it out there to make it look like everything's open, but it's just not. It's just not, and you know, it's that's the only thing that makes it so dangerous. Is it's invisible in plain sight, you know, and people call me all the time, not all the time, and not necessarily call me, but friends, you know, email me, and they complain about President Obama and whatnot. And no, I'm not real crazy about President Obama either, because he's certainly involved with this Agenda 21 in a big way.
Oh, but, yeah, he wants the guns.
Well, he wants, yeah. You know, when he was, I thought it was very scary that when he was running for election, you know, before there was even a chance anybody knew he had even a prayer of being elected, he went to an economic summit in Belgium and met with the Vandenbergs. It was like, what? Who is this guy? You know, what's this about? And the next thing you know, he's president of the United States with questions about whether or not he's eligible, blah, 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 blah. And people will start complaining about them, and I tell them, I don't want to hear it. We have the power of the vote for now, and even that's getting to be questionable because they're making it all computerized. And once they make it computerized, there's no way we can verify if it's real or not. And certainly, they're not above doing that. They, you know, the voting machines that they talk about were owned by or developed through. What was Cheney's group? I forget the name, but
I know what you're talking about.
There's all these ties and connections that go hand in hand, you know, and people got to wake up. They get all their information about who they vote for from the TV or the radio, and all that information is controlled by the same people that want to put their people in place. You know, they make it look, they throw in a little controversy here and there, get the name out there, and throw in a little real news here and there just to do it, but it's all propaganda. It's all propaganda, you know, and people don't realize, like things are subtle. Now I don't want to, this is my theory, okay? This is just my opinion about something, but in our school system, you learn that when we dropped the bomb in Hiroshima and then Nagasaki, that ended the war. What they don't tell you is that more people were killed and more damage done by our incendiary firebombs than were done by those two atomic blasts. And the Japanese had shown no signs of being willing to surrender. We dropped those two bombs, and still for a couple of days, no signs of them being willing to surrender. Then Russia officially announced they were declaring war on Japan, and Japan surrendered. Now, our history books say we dropped these bombs on them and they surrendered. Russian history books say they joined the war and the Japanese surrendered. I don't know which it was. But I know that there's enough muddy water around it for us to suspect we may not really know the truth, because the history books are always written by the winners. Our winners are the people that control the history books.
Yeah, really the people that control the world right now. And, I want to go back to the presidential thing. I guarantee you, and no, I don't have proof, but I could guarantee that the elections are being tampered with. I think they have for a long time. I think what they do is they put the two puppets up there, and they want us to pick from the lesser of two evils, but either one we pick is still going to serve their agenda, and maybe their own as well in some aspect. But I think that's how it goes, and I think the real people, like, say, a Ron Paul, you're not going to see someone like that get in there. And if he does, he ends up like JFK. I think JFK was probably the last president we had. That was, I believe that was a coup. Yeah, I agree. Totally agree.
I got to tell you, the best candidate I've seen, and people are going to laugh when I tell them who it is, but the strongest, most moral, upright, and unattached or uninfluenced candidate that I know of, the only person that I would consider voting for that's in the national realm for president would be Sarah Palin. Sarah Palin is a strong, honest, politically savvy woman. She was the only person to ever stand up against the major oil companies, which are part of the same group that's putting together Agenda 21, to stand up to the biggest, most powerful economic entities in the world and back them down. And when she had the opportunity to run for president, the same people who control the media had to get her out of the way. And they made her look like a real idiot because they could not touch her record. Her record is flawless. Her record shows that she had stood up to the oil companies and won. She had disposed of and pushed aside politicians that were well entrenched in her state that were not doing the right thing. They were defrauding the public. She pushed them aside. She came into power in her state and maintained the highest approval rating of any politician in the history of this country, all by being honest and upfront and doing away with corruption. And when she ran for president or for vice president, it scared the bejesus out of these people. So they made her look like just a bimbo, said things about her like all she stood for is breeding mongoloid children. Now, where does a statement like that fit into a presidential election? There's a movie out called The Undefeated that she's involved in, and I really suggest if anybody has access to it, I think it's on Netflix even, if they get a chance to see it, they ought to watch it and see the real Sarah Palin and not the one that our media pushed upon us. Never once did they talk about her record because her record far surpassed that of any of the other politicians in the ring at the time. They simply tried to attack her character and make her, because she's an attractive woman, make her look like a bimbo. And yet she's a strong, patriotic woman who has a common sense approach. She's honest, and I think would make a wonderful president. But of course, I say that to people, and they laugh at me. Sarah Palin, are you kidding? How scary! Well, it would be scary not to us, but it would be scary to the big corporations that are eroding away our freedoms, and the ones that are controlling what we learn, what we see on the media, where our money goes, how much money we're allowed to have, how much property we're allowed to have. And now with Agenda 21, who of us are going to get to survive, what kind of jobs we're going to have to serve them, where we're going to live, and how we're going to maintain their playground.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a scenario, but that's what we're up against.
See, I was for
Agenda 21.
Yeah, it is, and I was for Sarah Palin in the beginning, especially when it came down to Obama. So yeah, I was for her in the beginning, and then afterwards, I'm not sure. I don't really have a major opinion on her, except for that, when she was running, I liked her. I definitely did, but we really need to get somebody in there who cannot be controlled, who cannot, who's just, somebody who would say, hey, I'll take a bullet before, I bend the people over. And I don't know if that would be her or not. Maybe it would.
That's my take on Sarah Palin. Unfortunately, it's come to the point where now she realizes that's probably what would happen. I'm sure she's aware of that, and so she's kind of hanging low. But my gosh, look what happened to the Kennedys. First of all, John F. Kennedy was shot in very suspicious circumstances. By who, we still don't know. We're told who, but that person disappeared too, so there's no accountability there. Then his brother, who was standing up for the things that he believed in, disappeared by a guy, Sirhan, who they now have pretty good, a lot of pretty good scientific data that suggests that he could have very well been a Manchurian candidate. To this day, he doesn't recall anything about the assassination. It fits all of the descriptions of someone who was under some type of programming to do what he did.
I think
there's that popular movie out, The Bourne Identity.
Mm-hmm.
You familiar with that? And people think, well, that's a catchy name. That was a real person, and he was a government employee, worked for the military, and his job was to see if it would be possible to create Manchurian candidates.
And I believe that that's the case with even a lot of these mass shootings. I think that same thing's going on. I think there's an agenda there. One, obviously, to get the guns and not have to force people to give in the guns, but I don't know, condition people, I guess, to do it. Because I heard all these stories about people turning in guns after this school shooting. And I think that there's definitely foul play going on here, even with the Batman deal. I think definitely this mind control is part of it. We know now that they wanted to, anyways, it looks that way, that they wanted to shut up the two of the shooters' fathers who are going to testify. So you got to wonder, how deep's that rabbit hole going? And Manchurian candidates, I totally believe that that's a real happening, that happens.
Yeah, I do too. And unfortunately, with a tragedy like this, it's really hard to tell. It's easy to assume that, this is just too bizarre. But I look at our society in general. Look what they show the kids. Nothing but these video games, these violent video games. They're getting their education from TV. There's no sit-down families anymore at the dinner table. They've broken down the family format, or I don't know what term would be. Yeah, and so all of our moral compasses are screwed up, where nobody can agree on anything. It's the old thing, divide and conquer. Now, they can easily do that. These are the people that control what people are taught. I mean, our medical community. Who finances and runs all the medical colleges? The pharmaceutical companies. Who owns the pharmaceutical companies? The energy companies. Who owns the energy companies? The World Bank. Who's the one that put together Agenda 21? The World Bank. There's no advantage. Follow the money. So our medical community doesn't look for cures. They look for things that cure symptoms because that makes them a whole lot more money. There's strong evidence that there's been a cure for cancer around a long, long time using focused radio energy. This came out. They actually did a trial on it. They had like a whole, I forget how many people went into this trial. They were all terminally ill with cancer. They did this trial, and all of them within 90 days were cancer-free. And the guy who invented this equipment thought he had the cure for cancer. Well, guess what happened? His lab was burned to the ground. All of the group was gone. He was obviously, for some reason, afraid to come back out and get things going again, and they moved right on. But it's all documented. His results are documented, and nobody's done a thing since then because they don't want us to know that. It keeps us, buying these drugs from the same people who own our homes.
I'll tell you, Robert, a guy that you should get on your show is Dr. Leonard Coldwell. He has an incredible record of curing cancer with natural cures. He's got, I think, something like 400 people that he's cured now. They've tried to kill him 3 times. He could prove it. He's even put $1 million of his own money out there on a wager, telling doctors if you can prove me wrong or prove me to be a fraud, the $1 million is yours. I mean, he's really doing it. And I also see videos with
his contact information for him. I have a guy who just contacted me, wants to be on, and who was a medical doctor who decided to, after seeing what was really going on in that industry, he gave up his practice. He had a good, healthy practice because he is so convinced that the medical community is more interested in selling drugs than they are in curing people. And he was so disillusioned, he actually gave up his practice.
Oh, that's absolutely how it is.
Indoctrination process, you're taught this is the way you deal with these things. Well, you're taught by the people who sell you those things. That's like going to learn about dietary requirements at McDonald's. They're not going to tell you there's anything wrong with eating all McDonald's 3 times a day. They'd love you to do that.
Yeah.
Look at autism. How could autism become so commonplace when it really was unheard of just a few decades ago, if it's not something in our environment, in our food? And where does our food come from? It's sold to us by mainstream TV, by mainstream communications. How if we lost, if they shut off power to a big city, that big city would be under their total control within 24 hours. They could do whatever they wanted, which is why they want to move everybody to these high-rise, pack them and stack them communities and empty out most of the country. The last thing they want are small communities that can be self-sufficient. I live in one of the most remote, look at Gordon, lives out there in Maine. That's why he's there. I live in a place as remote as his. We can still drink the water out of the creeks here. It's absolutely gorgeous. And so now they have a thing going through here. They call it the Monument Program. they want to make this a national monument and move everybody out. This is all part of Agenda 21. But these are the places they're going after first, because these are going to be the holdouts against this national program to move everybody out in the guise of protecting the environment. They say they only want to have things that are sustainable. Things that are not sustainable are things like pasture land, farmland, paved roads, just little things like that. They want them all gone. They'll have us all only commuting by train from one pack center to the next. You can see you can look online and find the maps that they've already decided where people are going to live, and 90% of them are in red color. The red color is to illustrate, why they're going to be just left to be open spaces. And if you live in one of those, you won't. And that covers probably 90% of the United States of America.
Well, they can kill me because I'm not going to do it.
Well, I think if people become aware of what's going on, they won't be able to do it. And there are signs now that this whole concept may just be crumbling away. It won't ever go away. They may postpone things a little bit until they get everybody back under control and let things calm down, pick things up a little bit, improve the economy a little bit, get everybody fat, dumb, and happy again, and then just keep moving along. That's what they've been doing all along, a little at a time. It's a scary.
Yeah, I've been saying, Robert. I've been telling everybody if they could really get probably a good portion of the population into their FEMA camps really easy. All they would have to do is load them with video games, TV, cable. Give them some food, and and they'll probably walk right in themselves.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. And what's amazing is our whole system, our whole political system, everything is so vulnerable to earth changes. The idea that sunspots. This show, a solar storm, and this show is off. If the internet goes down, our military is almost helpless. How do they get supplies to different places when you can't fly a jetliner because you can't talk to the towers anymore? I mean, there are so few people left in the country that are really self-sufficient, that can really take care of themselves anymore. We used to be a whole nation of independent people. They started moving us to the cities, and that independence grew less and less. But it was always somewhat in balance. There were enough people left that we could always spring back so that national disaster occur or whatever. But even that's going away. Our society is changing. It's changing rapidly. And all of the safeguards that were in place are just eroding away. And I don't have answers for all that. My trust is in God. And that's the only thing that makes me. I don't have trust in government. I don't have trust in any of those things. I do what I can do on my own, and that's that. I'm not a prepper, a doomsday prepper, or anything like that. But God bless those people, and wish them luck if something, God forbid, in that big a thing happens. Good for them for being prepared, but to me, it's in God's hands, and I trust God. And I think the only thing that's going to save us is returning to the fundamental, basic thing: the family values, trust in God. I don't know. I don't want to sound like this guy standing on the corner saying, "Repent, repent, the end is coming," but I don't think there's hardly anybody out there who can't see that the end is coming. I don't think it's going to happen on this month, like a lot of people do. I mean, what a lot of people don't understand is that the Mayan calendar, which seems to be scaring everybody to death, The Mayan calendar is set up in cycles, 26,000-year cycles, and they go from the dark cycle, the worst of times. They travel all the way up to the golden age, and they start to decline and come down to the worst of times again. That's a cycle. That's a 26,000-year cycle. Well, that's what we're ending, that 26,000-year cycle, which means that we're ending the worst of times and beginning the best of times, or starting to work our way towards the best of times, which is has a lot to do with astrology. It's a certain alignment of the planets that are going to bathe us in more positive energies. It's going to keep getting better and better and better after the 22nd or whatever date they say that the world's supposed to end. The world doesn't end according to the Mayan calendar. That cycle of bad times ends, and the cycle we start working towards better times and another golden age. So even that's been changed by the mass media to put panic into people's heads and to scare people and get their eyes off of the game that's being perpetrated all around them.
That's right. That's exactly what's going on. Robert, hang on for a moment. We've got to take a break, and then we'll for the Agenda 21 conversation.
Well,
by all means, go ahead.
I think people get the picture, Mike.
I do
want to say that my radio show is on Thursday evenings at 6:30 p.m. So we're stepping on each other. So I'm not going to bother giving the website out. People want to find it, they can, but it's the same format as Late Night in the Midlands, and just sometimes a little different approach. We have high caliber guests. I see we have some of the same guests on and have them on. So at any rate, if you want to come by and visit, you're certainly welcome, and you can do that. But I don't want to compete with my good friend Michael here, and so
no, Robert,
I'm not going to give you the website.
Right.
You can find it if you want it. How's that?
No,
Is that fair
that's quite all right. You can give that out. That's fine with me. I mean, my shows are archived anyway, so
yeah, so
who
knows?
Maybe
so am I. So they can look at them. As a matter of fact, what I would suggest, I always put I'm only on once a week. I'm only on Thursday evenings, and I put my show, the archive show, up after about half an hour after the live show, and I put it on my website, which is footprintsinyourmind.com, and you're able to hear it there anytime during the week. After that, the following week, I'll put up the next show, and I put a little blurb as to who's coming on in the following show. So if you want to see what we're about, go there, and you can do it at your own time without without interfering with Michael's schedule. So just go to footprintsinyourmind.com, and at the top of the page, it'll talk about If Radio, and it's got an embedded player, and you can play the previous week's show. Right now, I guess it's Ro Sahibi on there, and he's talking about. He's on. We were talking about the Bigfoot DNA issue, so that's all there on the website right now. And basically, what happened there is there's a veterinarian doctor in Texas who has for some time been working on trying to find genetic evidence that Bigfoot exists. So he's been doing that since before I met her, before the people that we worked with got a hold of her, and she was so she's really a pioneer in that field. But she was never able to connect the dots and really figure out what was going on. She, myself, and another guy, Richard Stupstead, actually formed an LLC. She asked me to come on and help her with some of the business issues that she was dealing with. And I agreed to do that and help her out with that. And Richard had been working with her a little before I was, and he suggested that you contact me. And to be quite honest, we're very hesitant because of my former association with Tom Biscardi. Tom Biscardi is, I'll just say this about Tom, he's a unique individual. He's very passionate about what he does. He doesn't have a great reputation. All I can say is in all the time that I spent with him, and we would go out in the field together on almost every single thing he did, all the stuff on his website I wrote, and I never ever saw him do anything that could be considered a hoax, ever. So he's got a reputation as a hoaxer and whatnot, deserved or undeserved. I can't say. I can't read his heart. But my experience is that although he is outspoken, although he is, for lack of a better term, obnoxious, as far as I know, he is not a hoaxer. He's easily hoaxed because he's so passionate about what he does, and that's caused him trouble in the past. So,
right. Well, I'm a hard evidence kind of guy.
Although I still talk to him occasionally, but just on a social level. But I did leave that organization for personal reasons and went off on my own kind of. But at any rate, we got involved with this veterinarian who was doing this research. And to make a long story short, Richard Stubstead, who is a statistician from out in Berkeley, I believe, he went to Berkeley, was able to find some anomalies in the mitochondrial DNA coming from vetted samples. For those of you who are not familiar with vetted, that means they had been tested or verified to have come from something that was most probably a real Sasquatch and not just something they were trying to find out what it came from. So those samples showed a anomaly that was only shown in a very small percentage of the DNA that came just from the mother's side. And when he pursued that, he found that anomaly repeated in vetted samples, which said that there was something unusual about these samples, and they did not match any known human in the Gen Bank, which is the federal depository of all the records of DNA of all known humans in the world. And what that meant is that the only way to know what these really were was to get nuclear DNA testing done, which is extremely expensive. And I won't go into all the differences between mitochondrial and nuclear DNA right now. But what's happened is, as funds became available to Melba, and she was able to do some nuclear DNA testing, she got rid of all the people that were helping her. She wants, she doesn't want anybody else to be involved, I guess, except for her close friends and whatnot. And that included Richard Stubstead. And Richard Stubstead has since passed away. And it was his work that actually connected the dots that opened the door to this earth-shattering discovery. And clearly, in my opinion, Melba deserves the bulk of the. This is her study to begin with. But without Richard, she'd still be stumbling in the dark. And although I was involved with it, mine was only on the business end of it, not anything else. And so I didn't make any breakthrough stuff here. I did help. I did put her in touch with people that were able to supply her with some of the samples that used to help this breakthrough. But other than that, it had nothing to do with me. Other than I was privy to a lot of the stuff going on. But Richard, on the other hand, deserves to be credited with his discovery. And so I'm kind of like out there waving a flag saying, hey, don't forget Richard. Just don't forget Richard, because he's kind of been pushed to the side. And there is an ongoing study at Oxford University using the same data, doing the same study. And I know that Melba Ketchum has tried to publish some scientific papers, and so far they've not been readily accepted by the mainstream scientific community. But the science is real, the science is good, and there's a lot to, how the paper is written and presented makes a big difference in whether or not it's going to be accepted or not. But if you're really interested in finding out what went on, just go to footprintsinyourmind.com, click on the little Blog Talk Radio icon there, and listen to the last show, and it'll give you all the details. And when you're done there, scroll down a little bit further, and you'll find the video, the compilation video I put up about Agenda 21, which is, I think, a real eye-opener. And it puts things in a real modern-day picture that everybody can find, everybody can identify with and understand. And it really kind of concentrates a lot of different ideas about Agenda 21 into one video. And took about 6 hours worth of videos and put them together into 1 hour. Just a few minutes over an hour. So I think it's a helpful thing. But yeah, there is strong DNA evidence to suggest that this thing that we refer to as Bigfoot is probably at this point it looks like it's an extant human that has bred with modern women. By modern, we're talking about maybe 10 to 15,000 years ago. And extant meaning a type of human that was thought to be extinct. That if we can follow through with the rest of the study, we'll find out that human is not really extinct, and it is a human that is not quite like us, but close enough to be classified as human. So I think it's an amazing breakthrough. There's a lot of information out there. I don't want to take anything away from Dr. Ketchum. Like I say, this was her study before we got involved with it. But I would like to make sure that the world knows that Richard Stunstead is the one who first connected the dots that got this whole thing off of top dead center and moving forward. And in his may he rest in peace, in his honor, I think the world needs to know that. And that's the only reason I'm still barking up this tree.
Now, if this DNA,
that, Michael. So,
yeah. Now, will this prove? This won't prove that they still exist, though, will it?
Yes, it will.
It will.
It certainly will. Yes. The samples that were used they were the recent samples that are being found as we speak. There's still more going out there. So before they would just come back human, and they would usually come back as contaminated because there was these. Give you just a real short thing to put this in perspective. There are over 3 billion pairs of combinations in a human genome. Nuclear DNA comes from the male side, and what that is a combination of his mother's DNA and his father's DNA, and it's all, all the mutations and all those different things show up in that. Mitochondrial DNA only comes from the mother side and is passed down from mother to mother. And it's good enough to say what species this is, but it doesn't have all the other detail that a nuclear DNA carries. And so it's a much less expensive test to use, and it's used as a rough test. They could find out a lot of information from it, but not nearly as much as they can from the nuclear DNA. Now, the mitochondrial DNA, they only test roughly 740 pair of combinations out of the 3 billion that are in the human genome. That's a pretty small percentage, but it's enough to say, yeah, this is a cat, this is a person, this is a monkey, whatever it is, because they have got that outline. And they could say, yeah, we know you're the father, or that kind of stuff, real quick. But it doesn't give the whole picture. And so that's an inexpensive test. And when these tests would come back, they would show two of those pair didn't match any known human in the gen bank. The rest of it all showed it's human. So the test results, when the people would send in a DNA sample they thought might be for a Bigfoot, would come back human or contaminated, because there's just this minor change that didn't show as human, so they just attributed that to some type of contamination. Well, Richard Studstead, being a statistician, was the first one to look at all this and put it together and realize that those two pairs that were different would repeat in vetted samples, which says, wait a minute, this is not a fluke, this is not contamination, and this is something that, some type of human that doesn't show up in the gen bank. So it's some unknown type of human. And so from there, they started working on the nuclear DNA. Now, to run nuclear DNA that they don't already have not already learned how to run, they have to develop primers, because a strand of DNA doesn't have enough information. Well, it has all the information, but there's not enough of it to run through all the testing. So they have to develop a primer to help grow more, so that they could have what they need to continue with the testing to find out what's really going on there. Well, growing those primers is a very rare and expensive undertaking, and only a few places that have the capabilities of doing that. And to give you an idea of what that's around, we've had Neanderthal DNA for a long time. But it wasn't until just recently that the Max Planck Institute in Europe was able to develop the primers to really understand what that DNA was all about and what was going on with it. And that was a breakthrough discovery, because what they found, where they had always thought that Neanderthal had gone extinct, was that it didn't go extinct. It just simply was bred away, and that something like 75% of the world's population has Neanderthal DNA in it, because we would just absorb them as a subspecies of human into us. So that was a major breakthrough. Well, we're on the same kind of thing here, except it doesn't appear to be Neanderthal. So there are some people who think maybe it's the Nephilim from biblical times. There's some people who think it's an alien. There are some people who, like myself, who believe it was probably some type of humanid that we thought had long since gone extinct. So, but the bottom line is, it's there and it's real.
That's fascinating. If it is, if it could be, yeah.
It's a major breakthrough, and it deserves a lot of attention. Unfortunately, I think that I'm not crazy about the way Dr. Ketchum is approaching it, and she now has some big dollars behind her, and she's making a lot of headway. And I think that eventually, through trial and error, or getting the right people involved again, she had them involved to cut rid of those people as well, because I can only guess. I can't read her mind or anything like that. But what seemed apparent to me, and going back and reviewing all the emails I have and things like that, is that this was a plan she already had, and she wants to go down in history as the person who discovered what these things were. And that's a big prize. It's a big prize, and she's going out of her way to lock it up, so to speak. And,
now, this could actually push a lot of people to start trying to hunt these things down.
Yeah, it's just like Tesla. He had so many breakthroughs, and I guess it was who's the guy that had attributed to giving us all the power, Edison.
Edison.
Edison, and he offered him a lot of different things and gave him all these breakthroughs. And Edison, through history, has become known as the person who discovered all these things and did all these things. And most of them were discovered by Tesla. Although people now are beginning to realize what his contributions were and who he really was, and are beginning to understand that those were his contributions. It took a long time for the general populace to know that. And I'm just afraid that the same thing is going to happen to Richard. And I just want to see him mentioned as someone who really turned the key that unlocked the door. The door is what Melba will be opening. Melba Ketchum will open. But with Richard coming up with the key, she'd still be trying to figure out how to open that door. And I think it's important the world knows who did what here.
I agree. Robert, we've got about another 8 minutes to go. So anything big in the UFO field as of recent?
Well, there's just so much controversy and so much stuff going on. I mean, it's a never ending. I live on the federally recognized Bigfoot Scenic Byway, and we have sightings here every couple of weeks. Stuff going on all the time. I was going to the post office yesterday, and I got stopped on the end of my driveway by somebody coming through and says, "I just found some Bigfoot tracks up here in this, just around up here on the ridge." And, I mean, it's that common here. So Bigfoot's alive and well and doing well in certain areas. I don't know if I've told you about how remote it is where I live, but do you know the population density where you live?
No, I'm not. I couldn't even guess. I would have to imagine it's up there, but not certain.
Well, I live in the fourth largest county in California, and our population density is 4 people per square mile. That's not a lot of people.
No, it's not.
We live in the confluence of 3 wilderness areas. It's just a unique area. If I want to go see a stoplight, I've got a 140-mile round trip.
Yeah, that's out there.
Yeah, give you an idea where we're at. So, but Bigfoot is here. Bigfoot is here. We see signs of it all the time. And I'm not out in the field like I used to be. I mean, that was my thing. And now I've got so many other things going on here. But I do get out, and I do get calls from neighbors that, a few weeks ago, I had a call from a neighbor 4 o'clock in the morning. This pair of these things are beating on the side of my house. And because we're so remote, it'd be a while before the sheriff could come out. Could you come out and help me? So I went out with my night vision equipment and that kind of stuff and checked it all out and assured her everything's okay. And we found signs where it had moved about a 600-pound old cast iron stove off a pallet to hide behind because her daughter was throwing plastic bottles at it and everything kind of scared away. And, so that kind of stuff happens here still. And
I see.
Have you people see what we've got to do? The only way we're going to end this controversy is to shoot one. And all I can say is the information we have now is so strong that this is the type of person that there would be absolutely no justification for shooting one now because that would be murder.
Well, we could tase one maybe. I know.
They're pretty. You got to understand they are as intelligent as we are. A lot of indications
smarter
like that, and some ways certainly smarter than us when it comes to how to get around in the backyard, out in the wilderness.
Yeah,
which is backyard, and they don't want to be seen. And being better and better suited and more knowledgeable about the great outdoors than we are, they are certainly capable of staying out of our way, and they do. Now, we do have the technology to find them on, with thermal imagers and night vision stuff and things like that, but that's so expensive that the average person can't do it, and unless somebody throws huge amounts of money at it, they're not going to be able to do that. They're just not going to be successful. It's a difficult thing to do. Everyone thinks, well, why haven't they found one? Well, they have. Why is there no bones? Well, there are. And, why is there none of this? And there is. We just haven't been able to connect all the dots. And there's so many people now that think it's a joke that even the serious people are under ridicule for even considering it. So there's a whole big paradigm that has to be overturned before any real serious researchers can be considered as their findings being probable. It's a whole long and involved paradigm that will eventually be chipped away at and disappear. But you've had enough guests on it for enough people. You understand what's going on, and it's the same with any kind of fringe science or new concept. The idea, well, why doesn't the whole world understand Agenda 21 is a real deal, even though it's publicized if you look for it, and it's happening all around us if you look for it. But people are so caught up in their paradigms, in their everyday life, that it's just too far-fetched and they don't want to believe it, and so they don't.
That's right. So, Robert, the websites, why don't you throw those out for everybody again? And somebody did ask in the chat room real quick if you had seen Bigfoot with your own eyes.
I'm sorry, what was that about people that see Bigfoot with their own eyes?
Yeah, somebody asked if you had seen Bigfoot with your own eyes.
I have not seen Bigfoot with my own eyes. I've seen him with thermal imaging, and I've seen him with night vision equipment, but I've never seen him eyeball to eyeball. But I've certainly seen physical evidence to say he's out there. And I've been with people who have seen him while I was out with them. So I'm convinced. And
now there's DNA evidence, too.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. My Blog Talk radio show is blogtalkradio.com/if -radio. And then, it'll bring you to the site, and then you can go to the archives shows or the newest shows or whatever. And you can also listen to the previous week's show, like last week's show, on my website, which is footprintsinyourmind.com. And, of course, in my book and a lot of the things that we have are available. You can find them on either one of those places. The book is available on Amazon and, different, most of the standard places. If you just type in Footprints in Your Mind, Monsters and Myths and Me, it'll come up on any search engine will find it. And I really appreciate you had me on, Michael, and had a great time. I think you have a wonderful show here, and I'm a fan of yours. And been on the show a few times now. You've always been very professional and very upfront with me, and that means a lot. And for people who want to see what kind of stuff I do, my show is all archived on the Blog Talk Radio site. Just very similar to Michael's site, and we maybe should do a time where we can. I wonder if there's a way to crosstalk these two. There's only
as a matter of fact, there is.
Yeah, we should do a joint show together.
Well, all right. Well, I'll have to email you about that. Maybe that's something we can do in the next month.
Well, that would be awesome. Yeah, just let me know, and I'm open to it. It's a very similar format, and they merge together really well. And I like your approach, and I think it would work good. I think it'd be very entertaining, very informative. My idea is for people to be entertained and informed at the same time.
Absolutely.
That's what you do, so.
All right. Yeah, absolutely, Robert. Now, I'll definitely get you an email, and we can work that out. As a matter of fact, one of our other hosts here on the network had just done that with another show. So it's as simple as one of us calling into the other one's show and opening mic.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good. Yes, sir.
Sounds good. All right, Java
All right.
Bob. Keep up the great work, my friend, and we'll talk to you again very soon. So.
Radio. So we do kind of the same format as yours. We consider ourselves kind of a friendly and safe environment, very similar to Coast to Coast. But
yeah, and that's how we try to keep things here friendly and safe. And of course, the Blog Talk chat room sometimes will get out of hand. But I tell people if they want to be around people who are as smart as they are and have some great conversation, then come to the website, because we've got two chat rooms. We've got the Blog Talk chat open, and we've got the chat on the website as well. And I watch the one on the website more. So.
Well, that's a great idea. I just have the one. I have the one on the Blog Talk, and that's usually the only one we bother with. But we've been pretty fortunate. I've only had to mute out a couple of people. And mostly because they were just inebriated. They weren't really, it wasn't, very derogatory, but I just didn't want to deal with that. So,
right. I haven't had to.
I just didn't make any derogatory statements about them either. Just let it go.
I haven't had to throw too many out. I haven't had to do that. But when it comes in strides. Like a group of them will all come at once. And try to distract you.
Haven't had that problem yet. You never can tell what's going to happen. We've had some wonderful guys, really great guys, and they usually very professional, and it works out really well. Gordon has been on our show probably 4 or 5 times. So that's the caliber
I've had him on.
we have.
I think I've had him on about 3 or 4 times now. He's been on my show.
Yeah, it's a great guest, and he's knows a lot of people, has been around a long time, and brings a lot of heavyweight people with him. Most of the people we get are PhDs, and they're all published authors and whatnot, and so it's just fun. And I learn a lot. Now, you were talking about I used to serve on the board of directors for Searching for Bigfoot. Actually, I was one of the founding members, and when I got involved with that, you had me on before, and we talked about the Bigfoot thing, and when I first started, I didn't see how this could at all be possible. And after getting out in the field and seeing what was out there, it became obvious that clearly there is something to that. And what that was like a light switch going off in my head, because it made me realize that if I thought that was just all drama and delusion and couldn't possibly be real, and then I found out I was probably all wet about that, there's probably a lot of things that I had made up my mind about that I didn't know anything about, and that's a silly way to spend my life. And so I started looking at all the things that I always thought were just whack, and now I every time I get a new guest on that has a view outside of my own, I learn something, and I learn from it, and I take it away, and I don't necessarily agree with everybody I talk to, but by golly, I want to hear it, and I want to learn about it, and it's really opened up my life and my mind, and I'm much better off for it. And it's glad to see that there are shows out there that are open to those kind of ideas and willing to talk to people that think outside the box.
It's kind of ironic, because we had just done a show about Agenda 21, and then I got that email, and I thought, wow, okay, well, got to have you on. And Well, what do you know about it? This is some scary stuff.
It's very scary stuff. I mean, the biggest problem with it that I see is that people just don't believe it and they don't think it's real. Most people are not even aware of it. So, just bringing it out in the open is the best thing you can do. That video that you just talked about on my site, footprintsingyourmind.com, about a third of the way down the page, I've put together a video. It's a kind of it includes like several videos. They're all off of YouTube, and I put them together and added some different music and put in a few different comments and everything. But what I did is I took the main points out of a bunch of videos and compiled them together in a compilation that really talks about what it really is, how long it's been around, what the plans are, who's involved with it, where it came from, and what can be done about it. And so, it's kind of like a synopsis of all the different things you could find all in one place. So anybody that wants to take a look at that or download it, it's free and it's available on my site, footprintsingyourmind.com. We've actually done a couple of shows on ourselves on my Blog Talk radio show, IF Radio. That stands for Intradimensional Facets Radio. It's on Blog Talk under IF dash.
Please welcome Robert back to Late Night in the Midlands. Welcome aboard.
Well, thank you, Michael. It's great to be back.
Well, it's great to have you.
No longer. Well, I see you have some great lists. There were some great guests on there. I got a good friend of mine was on recently, Gordon Giannotto from up there in Maine. Yeah, I've known him for almost 2 years now. Brilliant guy. Really,
he is.
A good take on what's going on.
Yeah, he's a great guest. I enjoy talking with him because he doesn't try to glorify everything. He just tells you what he knows.
Yeah, and he knows quite a bit. He knows quite a bit and has a unique take on things, and I appreciate his candor and his approach. Yeah, we've been friends for a while now. And another thing, you mentioned that my ebook is available on Lulu. Well, no longer. I took it off, and now I'm on what's the Amazon for Kindle. It's now available on Kindle.
Okay, so I'll have to change that because I had it in the file. Yeah, so a lot's happened since the last time we talked. Around the country, around the world. You had sent me a email with some Agenda 21 video and such.
And have their own ideas about what's going around, because some of them are going to be right. Some of them might not be, but at least they have a format where they can share their ideas and expand the thoughts and the thinking process of all the people they can reach. And,
that's right.
Thank you.
That's right. Oh, well, thank you too. There's not enough of us out there, unfortunately. And, same thing here. I have guests on who I don't always agree with, but I want to hear their thoughts and their theories. Whether, I think they're wrong or not, who knows, I could be wrong. So I like to have them on and explore different things. And, so that's how I've been running it the last 5 years. I just... I can't stick to one thing. I can't talk about UFOs every night. Can't talk about the New World Order every night. Some nights, it weighs on you. So I kind of shift around.
Yeah, we have every possible. I had an alchemist on, and I always thought alchemy was just really one of those ancient things that they didn't know any better, and they were striking out all these things. And now I find out after talking to the alchemist that there's really quite a bit to that, and it's very probable that, as a matter of fact, now they've actually been able to turn some base materials into gold. So, but I learned an enormous amount. That really opened my eyes. So I appreciated that. But as far as Agenda 21 goes, what makes Agenda 21 dangerous is people just don't think it could be. It's just one of those conspiracy theories, and yet it's published. It's